Now that I've finished a bare bones version of CoursePower, I'm going to be demonstrating its main features and concepts. Let's get started right away. I'm going to come up here and just run CoursePower. Now I'm running this through the debugger, so it'll be different when you execute it on the computer you're using. The CoursePower window that comes up is something that will not be in any released version of this program. This is merely to make sure as we're experimenting with it, we have an easy way to make sure things are working, what kind of commands are run in, and to give us some control without having to put too much in configuration files. So what CoursePower does is it tries to find a running instance of the Atlas Pro learning management system, and from that create a course. So it reads its table of contents, breaks it apart in its own way, and organizes the lessons into sections and so on, so that you can have some navigational control over the course. So the first thing to do after loading up CoursePower is to make sure you have an Atlas course loaded. So I'll come here to the Internet Explorer windows, and sure enough I have one course open right away. The important part here is that at least when we initialize it, and again things like this can change, is that all three frames are displaying. CoursePower is actually just going to come in here and grab the HTML from this frame on the left, and that's how it's going to build its course index. The next thing that's important are these two buttons in the lower right hand corner of this box. One says load in new IE and the other says load in Atlas. Now the reason there's two is I ran into some unexpected problems earlier today as I changed courses. Different courses have a slightly different format. I'll get into more specifics when I'm actually running this, and you'll see what the problem is. But basically they correspond to having a different view. So the way these two buttons work, even though it's taking it from the same content, it's going to be using the same course, the open window in Internet Explorer I just showed you, it has two different ways you can view the material. So this will behave the same way as if, say, down the line we supported another learning management system besides Atlas. So we'll give you a demonstration of how that will work. So first thing we're going to do is load it. We're going to load up the course and using the view as a new instance of Internet Explorer. Once the course loads, it also loads the commands associated with the course. And you'll see here it's going to say loaded in the status box, and it will list the commands that go with this course. The first thing I'm going to do is open the CoursePower main menu. So to do that, I'm going to make sure that speech recognition is turned on. Show main menu. Here CoursePower's main menu has opened in Internet Explorer. All of these things that show up, the menus that aren't related directly to Scrum course material, are things that are fully customizable. In fact, I'll be demonstrating that in a few minutes. Now, note there's going to be some security issues as I'm using Internet Explorer 8 in this demonstration. These security issues aren't the case with Internet Explorer 6, which is what the Atlas LMS was designed for. Now the main menu is nothing special, there's no formatting, the text hasn't been edited, but it shows the concept of trying to show everything in one, without frames, in one window, so that JAWS or another screen reading program would have an easier time reading what's on the screen. You wouldn't have to worry about the menus or any other extraneous links that aren't related directly to what you're looking at. And from the main menu, to get to the first lesson in the course, we can turn speech recognition back on, start course, Now when CoursePower opens the course in this new instance of Internet Explorer, we're going to get this pop-up, which is one of the things I recently discovered, and it has to do with how the HTML is formatted, or Flash, or the different. It's how we're getting the content from the frame on the server. And so this here is it's saying it can't find the Atlas's API implementation, and it's the API of SCORM. Now what that is it's either a Java applet or some embedded JavaScript code that you have to have into the page in the page to communicate with SCORM. Now the reason it's not finding it here is because it's defined in some courses, but not all the courses I tested, which is why this eluded me for a little bit, in a different frame. This is also why, after I give you a quick tour of these features, I'm going to go back and show we can also load this up and use these navigation commands in the actual Atlas window, and then this error message won't come up. I'm fairly confident we can work around this. It's just a matter of changing the HTML before it loads. The other major navigational feature, I was about to get ahead of myself there, is to be able to see the navigation menu at any point. To do that, we can just give a simple voice command. I'll demonstrate that now. Show table of contents. Here it lists by section all of the lessons it found in this course. Notice right now they're not numbered. That's intentional. I'm going to go back in and show how we can number it to show you how easy these templates are in a minute. But for now, the key concept here is just that at any point you can see the navigation menu. This way it doesn't have to be open. It never has to be on the same page as where you're at. So again, that should be easier for screen readers. From here we can activate it and we can jump to any lesson. Let's go to lesson 5. Show lesson 5. Again, this is a security warning that has to do with the browser compatibility, which won't show up in Internet Explorer 6. And again, we have to click past these API messages. And that's the basic way it works in a new browser. Before going on and getting to the API problem and running this course through a different view, which again, from a technical standpoint, is the same way it would work now if we were communicating in a different way with a different learning management system. So the two things will change about how this course was presented. We'll make it so as soon as we load the course, we'd like the main menu to be the first thing that is shown. And then we'd also like to add the lesson numbers to the table of contents. So when people look at the table of contents, they'll know show lesson and the number of that lesson to open that lesson up. So let's close down Course Power here. And here's how the configuration files for Course Power are organized. There's 3 different types of configuration files. There's commands, which is where you define the speech commands or keyboard commands, which aren't yet supported, but I'll show you how they'll work. There's an events section. There's certain events you can tie in to run commands automatically with. So for example, when the course loads, there's an event defined there. And then there's templates, which is how we define what shows up in the Course Power window when you say things like show main menu, when you say command list. And we could even use templates to modify the actual content we get from the learning management system, but I won't be demonstrating that. So the first thing we wanted to do is make it so the main menu opens automatically when you load Course Power. So to do that, we're going to come here to the onCourseLoad XML file. Now, before I show you this one, let me show you what the actual commands look like, so you get an idea of what we can do. So I'm going to open up the default commands. These are the commands that are automatically loaded when we start Course Power. And you'll see it's just a simple XML layout. You define a command, you define a scope. Global is the only scope we're going to be dealing with in this demonstration, and global just means the command is always active. Now, eventually, like when you're at a lesson and you want to skip to the next page of the lesson, go back a page, things like that, you probably don't want the scope to improve recognition or just so it doesn't make sense outside of it. You want the scope to be tied to a specific thing. So you might want some commands to only show up on lessons, other commands to only show up on tests. And you'd accomplish that by using the scope part here. The next part in this XML element is triggers. Triggers are the things that when activated run the command. So right now the only trigger is speech, but again we're going to have keyboard shortcuts and things like that, and this is where they would go. You would just write keyboard instead of speech. And here in speech you have phrases, and phrases are just the simple text you can speak to have that command executed. Now if we look at the next command, show lesson, you'll notice this 1 to 10 thing. What that is, it's a list. Again, there's default lists that come up. Here's a list that just describes the numbers you can say when you say show lesson. And it's basically a simple variable completion routine for a speech engine, and it passes a value to the script, which is how the commands are actually run. So if we switch back here now, I'll talk about the actual commands. So the script, this is what happens when you run a Course Power command. The scripting language I'm using is PowerShell, which ultimately probably offers us a lot of flexibility that we aren't going to actually want. There could be trouble with security and things like that. PowerShell really lets you control every aspect of the computer. I think that's going to be really good for now while we're just getting this program to do what we want and to play around with the concept, because this would let us do things like turn off JAWS, turn on JAWS, open up new windows, open 2 lessons side by side. It really gives you a lot of flexibility, and it's really easy to use PowerShell to communicate with the actual source code of the program. And you can see that here I've defined these own functions in this program that you're able to use and then control the outcome. So here in this first one, the show table of contents, you basically ask the course, which is a Course Power part of the Course Power API. You get the lessons you want to show in XML format, and then you send that to the template, which is how you generate all of the template files. The templates will make a lot more sense in a minute when we add the numbering to the table of contents. But the first thing is we just want to display the main menu as soon as this starts up. So the easiest way to do that is we can just scroll down here through our commands and we get the show main menu command. Now what that does is it changes the scope so that the main menu scope is open. Now again, you can set custom scopes as much as you want, and unless you specifically disable it, the global scope will always be active. The difference between the global scope and custom scopes are custom scopes are only active when they, for the one page being displayed, when you explicitly activate it, like here when we say change scope to main menu, or if you return the browser back to it. At the moment that's disabled due to one of the bugs that came up, but that's how it will work. So all I'm going to do right here is just cut and paste this code, which is what brings up the main menu. So I'll copy that script, we'll bring it over here to the course load. First thing we do is we activate global. We still want to do that because before that happens, global hasn't been activated. I'll paste those commands in here. Do the formatting because I'm a programmer and overly picky about that stuff. And then we can test to see now if that should work. We should be able to run it, and as soon as course power loads, the first thing we should see is the main menu. And you can see how easy this would be to make that, say, the table of contents, or even the first lesson, or to even make it so it depended on a user's previous setting. Maybe the first thing that shows up should be where they left off. So it gives us a lot of flexibility, and that's one of the other reasons we're using the power script for now. So here we go. I loaded it. I didn't have to say show main menu this time, and the main menu came right up. So that's kind of the flexibility we have with this program and some of its capabilities. Now let's go and let's modify the table of contents template. So again, when someone says show table of contents, it comes in here and it gets a list of all the lessons. And the lessons are broken up into sections and actual lessons. And I'll have more detail in that when I actually write up some documentation, so you'll see exactly how it is. But for now, that would be overkill, especially since we haven't even decided on an overall format and what features have to be supported. I just wanted to give the point of this is to give an overview of all the directions we could go. So if I come in here to the template contents, now what this is this is a XLS transformation file which describes a way you can go from XML, which is a pretty standard format for data. It's actually what Scrum itself is defined in, and it's what I decided to use because of that to make it more compatible. It's what this program's going to use is XML. There's obviously a lot of ways to generate HTML, but at the moment I think this one makes the most sense. So if we come in here, basically you have a root. The root template is the first thing here, and you put in some HTML and then you go through, and what it does is it kind of iterates down through. So it would make more sense if you actually saw the XML file. I'm sorry I don't have a sample one printed out right now, but the idea here is just to see that, except for this funny stuff which may take a little bit of time to get your head wrapped around, you can see that the HTML generated by these templates is really straightforward. You can see the HTML tags here and what they are and how they're generated. And therefore you could add whatever alt tags you wanted to make it more compatible with JAWS or with any accessibility stuff, or you could add links in that could communicate with course power. This really gives you flexibility in how everything's generated. This also means you could take how you could even use the same technology to take how one learning management system outputs their data and automatically transform it to something that's more accessibly friendly. Now obviously here, for demonstration purposes, this is all very simple HTML with no accessibility tags, no alt tags, nothing like that, just the basic elements. But again, it's just for demonstration. Now let's add in, we want to come down here, and with each lesson we want to add the lesson number into what it prints out. So let's do that. Okay, so to add in the lesson number, we're just going to put it right in. So you can see here where in lesson, it kind of takes the object lesson, and here it gets the attribute. This @title means the lesson title, which is the name of the lesson. So now we also want the lesson index, which again will make more sense when you actually see this XML format. It's not all behind the scenes and the properties of these values, but basically that's the attribute we're interested in. So I'm just going to do some cutting pasting again. It's the easiest way to get things done. Come in here. Now we don't want the title printed twice. We want to make this the index, the lesson index. And for formatting, let's just add some spaces and put a dash in the middle. So this will have the lesson number dash the lesson title. We save the XML file and let's run it. Again, we'll still load in a new instance of Internet Explorer for this demonstration. And the main menu pops up. Activate speech recognition. show table of contents, and as we did it, we now have all of the lessons are numbered, grouped by sections. Again, everything and how it's displayed is all very flexible. What the commands do is flexible, but this shows you. And now to give a demonstration that these are actually the correct numbers, we'll jump to 4 and then 10. Show lesson 4. The security thing again comes up. We want to show content even if it's not protected. Ignore the API things for now. Show lesson 10. Show lesson 10. I confused the speech engine there by leaving it on while I was talking to you. Like I said, my first video. And a major flaw of the kind of paradigm of using speech recognition in the first place. One of the options we would have with a deployable version of this program is to make it so general dictation isn't activated and to have it in a command mode only. But for now, again, for simplicity, we're just leaving it on with the whole. So you could also dictate, not just give commands. So we've gone now to lesson 10. One other command I wanted to demonstrate before we get to the other view is getting a command list, which would be a kind of what can I say command, and how that is generated. I forgot to show it the first time through, so let's do it now. Show command list. And this, based on that default commands XML file, goes through, it gets the commands, it tells you what voice commands go with it. We may want to do some formatting here, how we want to say that this is a list. Maybe make it an expandable thing, one of those you click on it and it expands a tree with what you could say instead of 1 to 10. Or we could leave it, that makes sense to me. The other thing, once we add keyboard triggers, then this could also, instead of just saying to run, say, show table of contents, for example, it could say to run, press Control-Alt-H, or whatever the command was. And again, how that's displayed and what's displayed is extremely flexible. It would even be very possible to make these commands links so that by clicking on it was another trigger to activate the command. Okay, I'm going to close this down now. So those API windows that were coming up, the little message boxes that were frustrating and kind of ruined the flow of the program, I mentioned before was because of basically an applet that's defined in the topmost frame of the Atlas display, which is the form display. We'll be able to modify the HTML to prevent that in the future. I didn't want to spend too much work on it because I wasn't sure if that's going to be an actual problem on the edited versions of the HTML that you've been working on and making more accessible. But I will look for a solution. I just wanted to get this out here first and show. But now I'll load it in the Atlas window itself. So we'll just have the navigation commands. I'm going to come in here and undo the main menu changes we made so it doesn't load up automatically, in this case with a different view. I'll explain why after I've demonstrated it. So I'll come up here and load. And again, the way this works and the way the commands are still the same show how, the one good thing about having this bug early on, so I have to demonstrate in two different ways, is that ultimately this is the same way it'll work if now we wanted either a different type of display, say something other than an Internet Explorer window, maybe our own custom window, or if we wanted to display content from a course being displayed through another learning management system instead of just Atlas. Anyway, for now I'm going to click Load in Atlas. It's finished loading course power, so I'm going to come here to the Atlas window, which is what we're going to use for this demonstration, and see if the commands are working. Show lesson 3. the security problem again is show lesson 5, show lesson 11, show lesson 6, show lesson 7, show lesson 9, so again, you see we have the basic commands work however we're displaying it, independently of the view and independently of where it's getting the content from. And again, this still isn't an ideal solution in my mind because we have this top frame. It's not needed, it's extra real estate. If you wanted this menu, you should be able to say show top level menu or show main menu, and then you could have things like this: tools, refresh, show table of contents, things like that. But it doesn't always need to be there, which is the idea of that other view method where you open a new instance of Internet Explorer. But anyway, that concludes my initial demonstration. I believe that's most of the features. I guess one feature I didn't get a chance to implement, but again, it's the code for it's there. I just haven't written the command. Yeah, it would be to page through these actual pages. But I guess I'll be showing you that next time.